get started. Sure, we'll get the sign out and sheet passed around. I'll turn this off so it's not distracting. Alrighty. How are you all doing today?
Good.
You look great. You look great. You look happy. You look refreshed and alive. Okay, this session today we're going to talk about how to get higher quality listing appointments, right? And or how to set higher quality listing appointments. Now, in the past, I want to do a quick review. 2 sessions ago, we talked about how to find listing prospects by telephone. Remember? When we talked about that? And when we talked about that session, I gave you some dialogues. And the dialogues, you know, the 2 I like the best are the specific property approach and the specific person approach. So you might start off like this. Hi, this is John with Carlson GMAC Real Estate, and have you thought about selling your house? And they'll say yes or no, right? And if they say yes or no, what do you do? Either way.
Keep talking.
Keep talking, stay on track, right? Bill said, give them the reason why I called. You give them the reason. The reason is, I ask is I have a couple that I'm working with by the name of Di Giovanni. They both work at EMC Corporation. They have 3 children, and they're looking for a home in the Feeding Hills area. And we thought we haven't found them anything, and I promised I'd talk to every homeowner in the area until we found the right house. Do you happen to know of anyone interested in selling? Yes or no, right? How about yourself? Asking again in a different way, okay? Now, these sessions, if you've missed them, they're on DVD. I have them, you'll have to sign them out and use them. You can use them here in the office, you can even use them on this television right here if you'd like, or there's a television in one of our conference rooms. Those of you from the Chicopee and Wilbraham offices, those DVDs were delivered to your office last week, so you have them. This week, the handouts that accompany the DVDs will be going there this week as well, okay? So anything you've missed or anything you'd like to see again, because repetition is the mother of all learning, right? Then by all means, you'll have that available to you, okay? Now, so I talked about the approach, and then we also talked about offering them a fair trade to help you convert these prospects into appointments. I gave you some dialogues in terms of how to get them to, now that you've identified that you have a prospect, well, now how do you make an appointment, right? So we talked about, I'd like to stop by, take a look at your house, and while I'm there, I'd like to give you a market analysis. That way you'll know exactly what your home should sell for. Are you available at 6, or would 7 be better for you, right? We gave you that dialogue. And we gave you some interesting feedback about drawbacks to waiting. If they say, I think I want to wait till the spring, you know, we have some ways of handling that we discussed in the past. And then so I briefly went over with you as well in the past 2 sessions on how to get a bona fide listing appointment. But today we're going to delve into it a little more. Now, let's go to your handouts if you would please and start at number 6. What should you take with you on a listing appointment? Let me ask some of you, what do you take with you on a listing appointment?
Everything you need in my bag.
What's that?
A listing kit.
A listing kit. Okay, good. What else do some of you bring on the listing appointment?
Digital camera.
A digital camera. Excellent. What are some other things?
Digital tape to measure.
Yeah, a digital tape to measure the rooms. Absolutely, yes.
Promotional things from the company, how to sell your home, blah, blah, blah.
Excellent. Okay, so some handouts and
Marketing
materials. Great. What else?
My laptop.
Your laptop. Excellent. Okay. Very good. You know, I heard the story of a gentleman who just brought his laptop and he didn't even open it. He didn't even know how to open it. Didn't even know how to turn it on. But he had a laptop and he brought it with him, and people were very impressed. Absolutely. His biggest fear is that they were going to ask him to turn it on. Right? What else?
I bring a sign and a lockbox.
A sign in the lockbox. Outstanding. You guys getting some good ideas from the other people in this room? Yes? How many people think it's a good idea to bring your sign and lockbox? What does that say? What are you saying to yourself before you go out there? You're ready to go.
You're getting the list.
You know what? Roberta's attitude is that if I want it. If she wants the listing, she has the sign and lockbox ready to go, right? She may not want the listing by the time we get done with the presentation, right? So if you want it, you're ready to go. What else?
If they're moving somewhere else, I bring whatever they need, buyer kit and any listings, I can bring them to show them what I'm gonna provide as a buyer agent too.
Excellent,
So I'm
excellent.
one stop.
Awesome, yeah.
Agent.
One-stop agent, have it all, right? That's great. So, thank you all for your feedback. These are those some great ideas that you bring with you on your listing appointments. You know, and it goes back to, anything you can, tell someone, you should actually show them instead of tell them. So anything that you could possibly tell them, you should have some type of visual to accompany that. So rather than talking about your sign and lockbox, you could show them your sign and lockbox, okay? Yes?
At some point, can you show us a listing kit, new design, you know, everything that you have ever put into your listing kit?
Yes.
I mean, the paper, not the
Yes.
lockbox and that stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about that, and we're actually, next week's session is listing appointment process used by top producers, and we're gonna go into that in detail, absolutely, next Friday, so I will do that. What, on the sheet of paper we have here, it says, what should you take with you on a listing appointment? A briefcase and a flip chart, B, a CMA and a tape measure, or C, everything you may need? Everything. I remember sometimes I'd have to make 2 trips to the car to bring in everything I needed, you know? So, number 5, what is the best way to stay in control of the listing appointment? A, take things one step at a time and stay on track. B, improvise based on what you think the seller wants. Or C, mail them the company video in advance.
Hey.
A is correct. If you notice, there's a theme here. Take things one step at a time and stay on track. What is the difference between listing in one stop and listing in 2 stops? How many people know what I mean when I say listing in 1 stop versus 2 stop? When, for those of you who are newer to the business, you have 2 different options. There are 2 different types of real estate agents out there in the world. There are 1-stoppers and 2-stoppers. And that's when you go out onto a listing appointment 1 time, or you go out onto a listing appointment twice, okay? So, some people do it once, some people do it twice. Now, what is the, so what is the difference? A, 1 stop, B, your time and theirs, or C, both of them? Both is correct. Number 4, Floyd Wickman, whom the majority of this content comes from, says, once you get the appointment, A, stay on the phone and pre-qualify them. B, drive by the house so your CMA is scientific. Or C, rehearse the presentation on videotape.
A. I always go by their house beforehand, but.
Okay? Now, here's the key word. Once you get the appointment, so I'm on the phone, and they said, yes, are you available at 6 or would 7 be better? What should you do immediately after they say that?
Well, the
Get the
information on the house.
A, stay on the phone and pre-qualify the seller to see if you have a real bona fide appointment, a real seller. You know, I don't want you going out there and going on practice presentations, I call them. Practice presentations means you're going out there to practice listing the home, and in reality, you're talking to a prospect that simply isn't going to list. Yes?
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, I'm going through this whole process, I got an appointment, and now I'm gonna stay on the phone and pre-qualify him, and if he doesn't pan out, what do I say? Oh, by the way, you're an appointment I made, forget about it.
Yeah, we will talk about that, absolutely. Bill wants to know, well, how do I blow this person off now that I have an appointment, right? And the words will come to you. The words will come to you because it'll be a natural progress. In other words, a natural process. So what will happen is that I'm going to teach you a series of questions you're going to ask them, and at the end of them answering those questions, you may say something like, well, it seems like it might be a little premature actually for me to come out at this point. Maybe we should schedule a time in the future when you're ready to actually get your home on the market. So you could say something as simple as that. The words will come to you. Once you've asked the proper questions, they may even be wondering at that point, you know, why are you even coming out here at this point after you've asked the question. But that's a great question, so thank you. So stay on the phone and pre-qualify them. Here's what I'm asking you. We just spent 2 sessions talking about how to turn prospects into appointments, and how to convert those prospects into appointments, and how to find actual listing prospects. But what I want to teach you today is that I want you to spend more time on the phone with them after you've got the appointment than you did to get the appointment itself. You follow me? And I really kind of want this to be reactive for you. In other words, once you have these dialogues, I've given you some dialogues in the past 2 sessions, and I'm going to give you some dialogues today. Words to say, some things to say. The only difference between, the only thing separating from you and your next commission are the words, what to say. In any position, any field, anything in sales, anything related in any profession, the difference between you and your next paycheck is knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. So if you think we spend a lot of time on words and dialogues, folks, that's the only thing separating you from your next commission check is knowing what to say. There are people that have been in our industry for 3 months, and because the day they started, they just learned what to say, how to say it, when to say it. They are closing 20, 25 transactions their first year, right out of the starting gate. And there are some people who, you could be in the business for 30 years and not close that many homes. If you're just kind of taking it one step at a time and working on things that you may have been working on in the past that might not be working for you today. So, we want this to really become reflexive. And when I think about something, and I think about this story about being reflexive and being able to just speak right off the top of your head real quick, I'm reminded of this gentleman who was about my age, and he was married for the first time. And he and his wife were going to sit down, and his new wife were going to sit down and watch a movie together. So now feel this, you ready? He went out to the kitchen and he got 1 bowl of popcorn and just 1 glass of lemonade. And he started to walk into the room, and his wife looked at him and said, "Sweetie, where's, you only have 1 bowl of popcorn and 1 lemonade?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be right back and get mine, here." And he gives her, right? And just quickly he thought about, what can I do real fast to get myself out of this predicament, right? He said, "Here's yours, I'm going to go get mine now," right? So we want things to be reflexive for you. We want things to come out just right off the top of your head. It reminds me of another story of a gentleman, a young gentleman, actually still in high school. He's working at a grocery store in the produce section. And he said to he walked into the back room, and he went up to his boss and he said, "Boss, this jerk out in the back wants a half a head of lettuce. Can you believe that?" And all of a sudden the manager looked behind his shoulder, the boy looked behind his shoulder, and there was the customer standing right behind him. And he said, "Oh, and this fine gentleman wants the other half." So just being reflexive, being able to come up with that. But those are some examples of just coming up quickly. But the best way to do it is by learning the scripts and dialogues. You'll know what to say reflexively. It will happen. It will come around for you. So again, in these classes, I can only make you aware of what to say. You're not going to walk out of this room today knowing what to say. How will that come? You're going to have to practice, absolutely. You're going to have to leave this room and reread your notes over and over and over again. If you were mine and you worked for me, what I would do is I would say to you, okay, every class you've been to so far, every day, I just want you to read your notes once a day, every day. Just quickly read them. Read all the 5 or 6 questions in the beginning, read the notes you made, read the dialogues, just read them once a day. And brief, so it will take you all of maybe, as the weeks go on, it would take you longer and longer, but maybe if you spent a half an hour a day just refreshing your mind what it is that you're supposed to be doing and how you're doing, you would absolutely shine in this business. Guess what? Your competitors are not doing that. Your competitors are not sharpening their axe. Your competitors are scrambling around, taking overpriced listings. They're not prospecting. They're doing all the items that we learned about earlier today in the video in regard to, what is it, long range? What do they call it? Slow.
Immediate.
Slow response.
Future response.
Future response.
Immediate.
Instead of immediate response marketing. Someone asked me earlier today, "John, all these expires and these for sale by owners, isn't everybody doing this?" I said, "Nope." You'll be shocked and amazed that, not everybody's doing it. So get out there and work the systems that we're talking about. Now, what number are we on?
2.
Number 2.
2.
Or 5.
Some of you are on 3, that's okay. Well, number 3 is, we just finished that up, right? Stay on the phone and we'll pre-qualify them. All right, so we're going to talk about that. Number 2, what are the ingredients of a bona fide, or in other words, a gettable listing appointment. They're both at home and they both want to sell. B, you have scheduled enough time and you've done a ballpark CMA. Or C, you know the price they want in advance. Or D, all of the above.
D.
Yes, D. That is correct. Number one, who should you give all your mortgage leads to? GMAC Mortgage, a trusted advisor, a competent financial expert, or someone who will make you look like a hero, or E, all of the above? E, all of the above. Whoa, all right. Now, here are some facts you should know. In regard to a one-stop versus a two-stop listing appointment, let me give you a scenario, an example of, a one-stopper versus a two-stopper. For instance, a one-stopper will go out on 10 listing appointments, and 6 of those appointments will be one-stop appointments. They'll go out there one time, and they'll come back and they'll get the listing. That's what a one-stopper will do. 3 of those appointments, they might have to go back and forth twice. 1 out of those 10 appointments, they may have to go back and forth to that house 4 to 6 times to get the listing. You follow me? Now, a two-stopper will have to go back and forth twice on all 10. You follow me? So the difference between the one-stopper and the two-stopper is what?
Time.
Time, right? So when your handouts, it says one stop is, and write down the word quicker. A one-stop is quicker. Now, I'm not saying every appointment you're going to go on is going to be a one-stop appointment. You may get there and think you need to go back to the office and do some work that you weren't prepared for when you got there the first time. Perhaps you had different information than what you really needed in order to do a CMA, a market analysis on the property. So I mean, in terms of your goal, if you're newer to the business and you're not familiar with being able to make adjustments to your market analysis on the fly, like very quickly, like for instance, Christine, you go there and you see that, you know, it has, they talked about the house and it has a fireplace and a garage and all stuff, but they forgot to tell you that they added an addition above the garage, above the 2-car garage, and there's a lot more additional square footage. Listen, I've been to homes where they told me it was a contemporary, and I got there and it was a split. Okay? You know, I've been to homes where they've told me that they have a colonial, and I get there and it's a full dormered, or a gambrel, or a cape. You know, something completely different, and my comps are completely wrong. I've gone there, I've done my pre-qualifying questions ahead of time. I've asked them, and they've told me that the house is in great shape and they've updated everything. I go there, it's a dump, right? They tell me it's a dump, I get there, it's immaculate. So you have to be able to make adjustments while you're there at the listing appointment, and you're not going to be able to do that when you're newer to the business or when you're just starting out appraising the value of properties here and there, because that's a skill in and of itself. It can be learned. It's not rocket science, but it does take some time and energy and some practice. And so you may have to go there twice in the beginning. And then what my point is that I want you all to evolve to trying to go to one stop, because time is money, and you don't have to go there twice. It's not necessary. Okay? Yes, Roberta.
Well, I made a huge mistake once and I don't know how many appointments you call this, but I did not drive by the property and I was not familiar with the area. I just used the public record and some information that the seller gave me. My market analysis stunk. She couldn't believe it and emailed me the nastiest, you know, how dare you kind of thing, because I just sent it to her. I hadn't seen the property.
Ah, okay.
So ride by first. It's, if you don't know the area, you have to ride by first, I think.
And in that case, I would make that a two-stop listing appointment. I would ride by the area, go in, look at the property, talk to them. I'm already there anyway. I might as well meet with them and then go back. Remember that the person that has a, you know, is a one-stop agent. You know, 6 out of 10 will be. That would have been the 3 out of 10 that I would have definitely make a two-stop. Absolutely, or ride by the, familiarize yourself with the area. That's a very, very good point. Thank you, Roberta. That's awesome.
If you're doing that sort of thing, that preliminary stop, then that first stop, you don't have to have them both there for the first stop, just to let you go through.
I would, yes, definitely. If you had a two-stop listing appointment, I definitely would make sure that both people are there. If I had a choice of having them both there, either on the first or the second stop, definitely the second one. That's when I'm actually going to give my presentation and talk about price and talk about me and my company. But you know what happens is that they will form an opinion, you know, the first time you go out there as well. I want them both to see that I am measuring the rooms. I am taking a 100-foot plastic tape measure and putting it on the corner of the building and measuring the foundation, and none of my competitors are doing that. I wanna ask them every question that's in the multiple listing form, the data form. I'm gonna ask them every question on that form about their property. And you know, no one else is going to do that, I'm sure, no one else is going to do that. So I want them to see how thorough I am, you know, while I'm there, so I think that would make a difference.
Yes.
Given a choice, I would definitely ask them both to be there, yes.
I mean, I don't do first, one stop, I have always done two. On a one stop, if you go there and you do all this, and then you take the pictures and you do the measuring, how long are you there?
Long time.
2 hours, I would think it would even be more than that, cause even on a two-stop, I'm there,
Right.
sometimes hour and a half, 2 hours, I mean, just,
Probably got bigger houses.
no, well, no, I'm
It's,
serious, how
No,
long
I
do
spent
you?
4 hours with them, but there were,
That's a
there were
long
3
time, and
people.
they're,
Yeah.
for them to give up, I mean, sometimes they've got children, I mean,
A one-stop listing appointment can be done in 2 hours. It can also be done in 4 hours. Sometimes, like Sandy said, it could take 4 hours. There are times that I've been in someone's house for 4 hours. Why? Because they needed me to be there for
Yeah,
4 hours.
sure, they have a
I
lot of
didn't have to
questions.
be there for 4 hours. I only needed to be there for 25 minutes. You know, all I needed were the measurements and the pictures, and I'm out of here. I already know what it's worth. But depending on how much hand-holding they have, what you could do is get it signed and then make an appointment to come back to talk about staging the home.
yeah, I mean, before you take these pictures, especially now you're doing these, video pictures, I mean, they wanna stage them, they've gotta move something, they've gotta clean up, they gotta
Sure.
put stuff away, I
Yeah.
don't understand how you could do it all in one time.
Yeah, you'd go back a second time after you got the listing. See, I'm talking about the listing appointment process,
Okay.
not all the work that has to be done after that. Like maybe measuring the room and taking the pictures and all this, 'cause
Yeah.
let me share with you how I used to do this, as an agent. What I would do is, I eventually, brought on board a part-time assistant and then a full-time assistant. And what I would do is I would go to the property, give the presentation, talk about me and my company, ask them if they had any questions, talk about the pricing, ask them if they had any questions, ask them to sign the form, and I'd let them know that there'd be a sign in their yard in a few days. I'd explain to them how I work and so on and so forth. I'd be out of there in less than 2 hours, one-stop listing appointment. And then what I would do is I would explain to them, my assistant will be coming back to take the pictures of the property, put the lockbox on the property, put the sign in the yard. They will also gather some additional information from you in order to make up the picture brochures. In addition to that, they will also ask you to sign either the waiver or the,
Home warranty.
for the home warranty, either the waiver or accept the home warranty. I'm gonna give you some time to read that on your own. They're also gonna ask you, for, your seller's description of property, so you have some home. I would make sure that they did all this work before Renee would come out to the property to pick these things up from them. And then what was I doing? I was going on to the next listing, and the next listing, and the next listing. So, as you can see, Renee had a full-time job of going out, listing after listing to gather up all this information. Eventually, Renee had an assistant where Renee was in the office full-time, and then I had a part-time person who was going out and doing all the work that I just described while Renee was in the office, keeping all my deals together. So she would call the attorneys and the lenders and the title company and making sure everyone was adhering to the dates and the co-broks and setting up showings on my listings that were all on lockbox. You follow me? So we had a system in place where I was only going on listing appointments and putting folders on my assistant's desk, and everyone else was taking care of the details, okay? I would explain to my sellers, you're going to see me twice, once when I come out and list the property, and second, when we get an offer on your property and we start negotiating the offer on the property. Between now and then, you're going to deal with Renee. She'll give you all the feedback on your showings and also be forwarding you any information that we're doing in terms of marketing on the property. Any questions? You know, no one ever questioned it, and I kind of gave them the analogy. I said, you know, and the only people that ever question what it was that I'm describing to you are real estate agents. The agents are the only people that have any objection about what I've just described to you. Homeowners and home sellers loved it, they thought it was great. Because you know, sometimes I think they equate it to, imagine getting on an airplane and you look out the window and you see the pilot gassing up the plane and throwing on the luggage. What would you think? Going into your dentist office and seeing him running back and forth while he's working on someone's teeth and setting up appointments and also doing cleanings. Right? Doesn't make any sense. See, professionals have assistants, professionals have help. People are used to dealing with professionals in this capacity, right? Anytime I need to talk to my attorney, I always go through his paralegal first. She handles the appointment, she schedules the calls, she provides me with copies of paperwork that I need and all that. I don't call him for that, I don't expect him to do that, he's in court, right? That's where he makes his money. You make your money at the kitchen table, right? So if that's where you make your money, where should you be spending most of your time?
Kitchen table.
At the kitchen table, right, absolutely. Yes?
Excuse me, can we back up to measuring rooms?
Sure,
I don't do that, and our office always told us we were never to do that.
okay, that's fine.
But is that not company policy?
I don't do it either.
I'm not gonna comment on it, whether, I mean, if your office says that you don't do it, you don't wanna do it, that's fine, that's fine.
They were just always afraid if you measured wrong and somebody
Course.
went and
Yeah.
Absolutely.
ordered a carpet or did
For the carpet,
ordered a
yeah,
couch to fit
exactly.
this wall and it
Well, you
didn't
can
fit.
measure,
But they're
but not,
approximate.
but not use the measurements. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
well, that's a
just-
good
Yeah,
point
I
too.
mean, it's just
Yeah.
something you're showing, you know, the seller.
I like that, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your first name again, I'm sorry?
Art.
Art, that's great, okay, good to see you again.
I've always done it,
Thanks.
and people have always liked it.
I
You put it on the
measure
listing?
rooms
I
if
do.
they
I put it
are
on the listing
unusual,
Facebook.
like if it's an unusually good-sized master bedroom, I will measure that room. If all the bedrooms are tiny, I don't measure anything.
Okay,
You know,
yeah,
it's
right.
just
What's your preference?
depends on the house.
Absolutely. You know what, gang, here's the bottom line, I love what Art said, because you know what, I'm just thinking of every time that I walked into a room and I put this piece of plastic on the wall and I pushed a button and they heard beep, beep, beep. And I can't tell you how many customers looked at me and said, "What are you doing?
Yeah,
What is that?"
I love it.
They were blown away.
Love
This
it.
technology has been around for 20 years and people are still blown away. They don't know what the heck it is that you're doing to their house. And they do love it, don't they?
They love it.
They say, "Wow."
I'm
That's
gonna
pretty
buy
neat.
one of those, I'm gonna buy one for my husband.
Yeah, oh yeah, I
Where
hear
did you
that.
get
When can I get one of those,
Take one
right?
as a gift.
I've always been in the business for a short amount of time, but I'm finding very quickly that perception is reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I said it before, fake it till you make it, you can do that here.
Right,
You can do it.
absolutely,
Sell
absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Ken, thank you for saying that, that's great. Okay, the second step is, once you schedule an appointment, don't what? Once you schedule an appointment, don't what?
Don't change it.
Don't, well, that's good, yeah, don't change, I like that, that definitely applies, Mark. Don't, write this down, get off the phone. Don't get off the phone,
So that's what it is, don't get off the phone?
correct. Once you schedule an appointment, don't get off the phone. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to, once you make the appointment, some people, you know, they would I'd like to stop by and take a look at your home. While I'm there, I can give you some decorating ideas. That way, you can help you get the most amount of money for your home. Would you be available at 6 or would 7 be better? And they say 7, and the agent says, great, and hangs up and goes to the property, right? And I made a joke earlier in a previous class that sometimes you get in your car and you realize you didn't get the address. Or, you know,
For the
or you
phone
have to call
number.
the back, or the phone number, right, or you forgot what the number you had recently called or whatever. So now, what we do is, we don't get off the phone. We wanna stay on the phone, and remember what I said earlier in today's session. I want you to spend more time with them on the phone now that you have the appointment than you did to get the appointment. All right? So I'm gonna give you some things to say today. I'm gonna ask you to write them down, some things to say in order to help you to accomplish that. Now, there's no such thing as a blank CMA.
Quick,
What's that?
quick.
Instant, quick.
Quick, instant,
Yeah.
perfect. That's more where I'm going right there, perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect CMA. I use the word, and I get this from Floyd Wickman, he says scientific. Floyd says there's no such thing as a scientific CMA.
No.
There really isn't. And for all of you one-stoppers in the room, can you gather enough information on the phone in order to do a market analysis?
Sure. Yes.
Are you sure? Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're not a one-stop.
Right, and you're not a one-stopper, right, good point, right, or you're not in the business, right?
Okay.
Or you're in the business and you're not making any money, that's another option, that's as I like to say, some people are in the state of quit, they just haven't left the business yet. Look, think about this, for you two-stoppers in the room. When you go on the computer and you enter the information in the multiple listing service, what are you putting in there? What are you putting in the computer? Tell me.
The basics.
Yeah, what are they? Number of what?
Bedrooms,
Bedrooms,
baths, square
rooms,
footage,
square
approximate
footage,
square
the
footage.
tax.
The
Zip
lot
code.
size.
Lot size?
Your
And can
bill.
you get all this information over the phone?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So, and I wanna share with you one-stop versus two-stop. This is a true story. You know, when I was a two-stopper, when I was new to the business, there were one-stoppers who were really good agents in the marketplace, well respected, did lots of deals, and they were really good at what they did. And I remember going on a two-stop, and and somebody said, well, why do you have to come back here twice? Because this other guy's only coming here once. And I said to them, I just, reflexive, came off the top of my head, and I thought, well, I mean, do you really wanna trust the largest investment of your life to someone who's only gonna stop by one time and not do the thorough detail analysis, the scientific analysis on your property like I'm going to do? And I went and I measured the rooms in the foundation, and I had all, I did a lot of detailed work while I was there. I said, do you really want to entrust your largest investment to someone who isn't gonna take the time and attention that it needs to get your property properly estimated in terms of value, and also in preparation for marketing? And it worked, and they said, that's a good point, and they listed with me. And then when I became more experienced, and I became a one-stopper, I used to say, do you really want to trust the largest investment of your life to someone who can't even figure out what they're doing the first time that they're here? Right? So there's something to say about everything, right, gang?
Now you sound like
so,
Barack Obama.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Good point,
Lot of
right.
talking.
Good point. Yeah.
John, I'd just like to share something.
Sure, please.
I went on, Wilbraham has a new site where we can get the field card information.
Oh, good,
Basic-
good for you.
Not the full field card, but it's a new site, and I went on yesterday and I'm looking at this property that I already have signed up. And I'm reading everything, I'm looking at the assessments and blah, 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 everything. And then I went in on the GIS up close picture,
Yes.
and there's a swimming pool in the backyard, and I went, oh, they don't have a pool. And it turned out all the properties on that street were one off.
Oh my
They had the
God.
name on the wrong property.
Whoa.
Oh.
So going in, I
Scary.
could see it wasn't the right house. I went in on the neighbor's lot and that was it, because they had a two-car freestanding garage in the back and I could see. And so I
Wow.
had to adjust everything.
Interesting, yeah, very interesting.
And they had the certificate number on there, the land certificate number, which I don't know if that's the right one or not, I have to
Sure.
check on that, but it's all off.
But see, you notice that, if you bring it up to the homeowner and let them know, I don't have, and you ask the question, have the other agents you've been working with, did they pick up on this as well?
I did tell her yesterday, and she did tell me one other agent she called, did tell
Wow,
her that.
okay,
So,
all right,
um,
that's good.
I was glad I had found it out also.
Absolutely.
I like what you just said, a freestanding garage instead of detached,
Mm.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it,
isn't it?
yeah.
The freestanding garage.
Freestanding as
Sounds
a,
more
it sounds like a more sophisticated.
Except that the questionnaire in our MLS input says detached.
I
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
but if you would refer it to them, they might like that, oh, you have a detached garage, or you have a freestanding.
Hey,
It sounds
next-
like it's better.
Next item down, we have, you are as good or as bad as your blank to make adjustments when you get there. Ability works, yeah, I have skill, but definitely ability or skill, either one of those absolutely works very well. You are as good or as bad as your ability or skill to make adjustments when you get there. And I put some questions down here for one-stoppers. Can you ask enough questions over the phone to build rapport, yes or no?
Yes.
And can you get enough information about the house to do a ballpark CMA?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about bona fide appointments. Number one, in order for it to be a bona fide appointment, what do I mean when I say bona fide appointment? What does that mean?
Gettable.
Gettable, right. What's that? I like,
Worth your time.
worth your time, I like that one a lot.
But they really wanna sell.
And do they really wanna sell, like Mark said, do you really wanna sell, right? That is a bona fide listing
Otherwise,
appointment.
sometimes they say, oh yeah, come over, but they just wanna know the price. You know, get an idea, oh, I just want to know the price of my house.
They were just
Yeah.
curious, you offered.
Yeah, but is it worth, if you, I mean, if you have the time, is it worth going over there and meeting them and perhaps for future, you know,
Only
having
if-
that rapport?
Only if they wanna sell. And, the reason being is that while here's the problem, and like, some people would say, Esther, like, you know, for instance, what would it hurt? I would go there, and I honestly did this as an agent when I first started out. I would go there knowing I wasn't going to get the listing, but my goal was to build rapport so I could get future business from them and future referrals. And then I started listening to more of what the trainers in our industry started talking about, and then I realized that, wow, those 3 to 4 hours that I spent trying to make a friend and, you know, show these people what I'm doing for marketing so they could send me referrals, those people didn't send me referrals. The people who sent me referrals are people who I actually listed and sold their home for. Those were the people that actually sent me referrals. And in addition to that, somebody said to me one time, why would you spend 3 to 4 hours doing that, practicing on someone that doesn't have the motivation or the ability to sell, when you could have spent 3 to 4 hours on the phone finding someone who did? And you know what? That was just a big wow for me. That was an aha. That makes a lot of sense. Because you only have so much time in the day, in the week, in the year, in a lifetime, right? There's only so much time. So don't practice on people that don't have the ability to do it. Instead, take that time. Now listen, it might be more fun to go out and practice on someone than it is to pick up the phone and call another 10 or 20 or 100 people, right? Someone had showed me recently that they had put an ad in a magazine and they paid $250 for the ad. And the ad was essentially what looked like a business card. And I cautioned them and I said, listen, you know, $250, has anyone called you yet? And I knew the answer was going to be no, and the answer is no. Will anybody call that person? No. And then the next justification that we have as real estate agents, and I was just as guilty of this as probably more than anyone else in this room, of spending money on personal self-promotion. The other thing we justify this with is we say, oh, we just want to get some exposure. We want to get our name out there. Well, no one calls when you advertise yourself. No one calls for you, and they say, oh, I saw your picture in the paper. You know, I want you to come list my house. No. If you're going to spend money on print, on anything, make sure it's a house, not you. People don't call on people to see if you're if you're being listed. They're calling on the house. That's what they're interested in. Forever, that has been the truth. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then I thought about this. I thought, what if you spent $250 this way? What if you paid somebody $10 an hour and you had them work 25 hours calling for sale by owners and expireds to make appointments for you? Ooh. What if you spent $25 an hour on someone who was really good on the phone and asked them to work 10 hours for you to call for sale by owners and expireds to get you appointments, so you can go in there and talk about you and your company, decide whether and pre-qualify the listing and so on and so forth. Go out there and will that lead to income, yes or no? What do you think?
Yes.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? That's a slam dunk. And so be careful where you spend your money. And also, you know, we do these things to try to justify we're prospecting. We're doing something to get business. And unfortunately, some of the things that we do, they're just making us feel better at the moment, but they're certainly not solving the problem long term. Okay, gang? I know for some of you didn't like to hear that, but I'd rather tell you the truth.
Tell you now and then later.
Yeah, you're better off knowing now than later. Bona fide appointments only. Number one, they want to sell. Number two, both
Are there, are there.
both home, right, both home. Both decision makers are home. You know, some of you are dealing with people who have estate properties, and there are 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and you know, and you give the presentation to the executor, and they're going to talk about it to everyone else. here's the bottom line, I know it's not always possible because people sometimes move all around the country, but what I would do, and anybody can log on to www.gotomeeting.com and do a WebEx meeting and have all the sisters and brothers in front of a computer while you give your presentation about you and your company. There's no excuse anymore. You could be on the phone, on their Nextel speakerphone, and on their computer, and one of them could be at work, the other one could be at home, the other one could be in Las Vegas in front of a slot machine. You know, they're all over the place, and you can give them all a presentation just by going on to there and then taking your listing presentation, converting it into PowerPoint, which is extremely easy to do. In fact, GMAC already has a PowerPoint listing presentation set up that you can customize, and you just go through that with them.
What was that website?
There's several of them out there, but one of them is gotomeeting.com.
Go to meeting?
Yes.
Go to a meeting.
G-O-T-O meeting.com, yes.
Is this a fee?
I don't know. And if there is, I'd rather spend money on that than to spend $250 and put my business card in a magazine. You know what I'm saying? Here's what I always think though. What will it cost me if I can't get everybody on the same page? It'll cost me the listing, right? I might not get it. If I'm the only agent who does that, and all my other competitors, all they do is meet with the executor and talk to them about it, and ask the executor to do my job, who's going to stand a greater chance of getting the listing? You know the best way to compete? What did I always say? Best way to compete is to stand out. In other words, don't compete. The best way to compete is don't compete. If everyone else is giving the listing presentation to the executor, you give your listing presentation to everyone. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's putting a sign in the yard, putting an ad in the paper, and putting it in MLS, then you need to do some things that are different than that in order to stand out. Okay? The best way to compete is don't compete. Don't do what everyone else is doing. Or if you are going to do what everyone else is doing, do that and more. Number 3, at least blank blank with them. I'll give you a hint, it relates to time. At least. At least
Sit down.
2
Hours.
hours. Bill's got it. At least 2 hours with them. At least 2 hours. Very, very important. Now, what is the dialogue that we use in order to get 2 hours with them? I would say, hi Mark, I'm available, between 6 and, now that we've made an appointment, let's say Mark said, would 6 or 7 be better? And she said, well, 6, and to say, okay, great, listen, I have an appointment prior to, will you be home between the hours of 6 and 8 o'clock? And Mark said, sure, that's fine, I'll be in, okay, I'll be there somewhere between 6 and 8, and what time do I show up? 6 o'clock, right? If she says, no, we're gonna be leaving at 7, I only know I have an hour with her, I would reschedule the appointment. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you can get 2-hour time slot with them, is you wanna make sure that they're going to be home for that length of time. Some of you just might say, listen, are you gonna be, I think it's better to use the technique that I just gave you, by the way, versus calling them up and saying, it's gonna be a few hours. They may say, you know what, why don't you send me something in the mail, Sandy, and because when you get there and they like you, and what you're saying is compelling, they're gonna want you to stay, for as long as you can, or as long as they can allow you to stay, right? Number, what?
4.
Number 4, ballpark blank.
Frank.
CMA.
Frank's, thank you, That's exactly what I was thinking. It's about 11:15. I'm getting real hungry right about now. Ballpark Frank's, a little mustard, ketchup, and relish. I like the works. Put it all on there. Ballpark what?
CMA.
CMA, absolutely. They're plump when you cook them. Ballpark CMA. So you have that prepared when?
Before.
Before you go there on the one stop. Number 5, know what they want to blank their home for.
Sell.
Sell, exactly. Know what they want to sell their home for. Now, here's the magic. You ready, gang? And this is where some of you are gonna get a little hand cramping going on, because I'm gonna ask you to write down a lot of words right now. But the reason why I didn't just give these to you, and the reason why I want you to write these down, is so that they make a permanent indentation into your brain, okay, so that you remember them more. Now, here's another fact I'm gonna share with you. I don't want you to memorize these. I want you to have them on a list in front of your desk when you're on the phone talking to people. If somebody calls you up on floor time and says, come list my house, what do you think you should do?
Go.
Drop the phone and go. No.
No. Very good. But that's what we do, right?
That's what we do.
Absolutely, girl.
I mean, hey, if I'm on floor time for 3 hours and somebody calls finally and says, hey, come list my house, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. You know, hang up the phone and go. Absolutely. But what would I ask you to do? Ask what? Stay on the
questions.
Ask, yeah, absolutely. Stay on the phone. Stay on the phone. All right. So we're going to make a list of questions that you can ask over the phone. And your conversation, you don't have to start writing this out, or if you want to make a note on this, you can. But you know, I made a note here. Okay, I'll see you then tomorrow. As long as we're on the phone, let's take a couple of minutes. I'd like to do some research before I come over. May I ask you some questions? So, you know, I want to do some research before I come over. Can I ask you some questions? What do you think they'll always say?
Yes.
Absolutely. No problem. In fact, you're the first person that offered to do that. You know, the more you stick to this program, gang, the more it shows that you care about them. And the more that you show that you care about them, the greater the odds are that they're going to give you the listing versus someone else. Okay? Number one, would you describe your home for me? And in parentheses, what I'd like you to do is write this down. MLS listing, MLS data form, MLS data form. And so when they start describing the home for you, you're going to start making notes. And keeping in mind that the first few things that they talk to you about will probably be the first few things, the most important things to them, okay? And now, after they're done describing the home for them, then I want you to start asking the questions on the multiple listing data form that they haven't given you, okay? And you could say to them, what about a fireplace? Do you have a fireplace? Yes, no, maybe, right? So that's what I would ask you to do, is go through that list and fill out all that information. What will you do with that information? You use it to do your what?
CMA.
Your ballpark CMA. And now that you have that information, and now can you imagine, you're going to be on the phone quite a while with these people, aren't you? Right? And this is good. This is a good thing. Better to do it on the phone now than to do it later. And this will help you with your one-stop or your two-stop. Now, number 2 question is, now let me see if I understand. You want to blank. Let me see if I understand. You want to blank. And in the blank, what I would like you to do is restate their motivation for moving. Because during the conversation, it's going to come up where, okay, so let me understand. You want to sell your home and buy a new home on the other side of town, is that correct? And for different people, it'll be something different, right? You follow me on that, gang? So you just want to restate what it is that they're doing. And they may say to you, no, that's not what I said. It's better for you to know now or later, right? Now, absolutely. And then they may say, well, in addition to that, I also need to get my mother's home sold first because we're going to use the equity from her home to help us pay off our mortgage that we're behind on, and also to give us the money that we need to buy another house. Oh, okay, great. So your mom needs to sell her home. So we should probably do the same thing and go over her house and take a look at it and all that good stuff. But we'll talk about that later, right? Put it aside. You've got another lead. And why? Because you asked that other question. By the way, your competitors are not asking these questions. Your competitors don't know what you know. And are you at a huge advantage knowing this information?
Yes.
In order to be able to help them? Absolutely.
So what you put in number 2? Let me see if I understand.
Yeah, let me see if I understand, and then restate what it is that their goal is, or what it is that they're trying to accomplish, what it is they're trying to do. That's number 2. Number 3, you ready for this? Your spouse will be there, won't he or she? Right? Your spouse will be there, won't he?
Why do you think there's a spouse?
Well,
Or your significant other.
Well, I'm divorced.
I would ask if
Yeah.
anyone else is on the deed.
This
and
is,
if so,
let
what
me,
they-
Mark brings up a good point. So I wrote down your spouse was, I'm going under the assumption that during my conversation, I learned that there was a spouse. And so, we should probably restate that, thank you. What, if you don't know if there's a spouse, then you should say, are there any other, I wouldn't say are there, I say, who else is on the deed? How about that? Yeah, who else is on the deed? I like that better than who else do we need to have the decision makers? Now, here's a problem with the question, who else is on the deed? What about the gentleman who owns his own house, and then he met the woman of his dreams, and then she moved in, and now they're married, but she's not on the deed. And I asked the question, who else is on the deed, right?
Right.
And then, but let me ask you a question. Is she going to be instrumental in
Absolutely.
who is hired to sell that property?
Yes.
Right? Absolutely, right? She's gonna have some say in this, isn't she, right? Absolutely. So maybe you wanna tack on another question, number 3 was, not only who else is on the deed, but you might also wanna know is, who are the decision makers that are going to be involved in choosing how this whole process works? And so, that'll give you some good information. And you wanna be able to present to all the decision makers, and that's where we're going with this,
I think
yes.
that's better than the deed, because on many of the homes, the husband's not even on the deed, the wife is, because of
Well-
business practices and.
That's true, however, I think both are important, and I'll tell you why,
Yeah,
because.
no, I agree with you.
Oh, you do?
Both
Okay,
of them
yes.
are. I think asking who's on the deed isn't necessarily, like you
Oh,
said,
I'm
the
sorry,
decision makers.
yes, thank you, I understand what you're saying,
I
absolutely,
mean,
doesn't
I'm
mean,
the only one on my deed, and
right,
that wouldn't be the case.
yeah, a very good point, Esther, very good point, very good, thank you, good comment. So so basically what you're saying, it's good to do both, ask who's on the deed, and then in addition to that, ask, who else would be involved in the decision making, right?
So basically, your one question ended up being 3 questions.
Sure did.
Who else is on the deed, who else is in the decision, and will they be there?
And will they be there? Thank you. Bill, thank you so much for encapsulating that for us. Who's on the deed, who will be the decision makers, and will they be there? So number 3 is a 3-parter, isn't it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to all of you, I appreciate it, this is good. Now, what if they say, yes, my wife is not on the deed, or she says, my husband's not on the deed, but yes, he would be involved in the decision making, and then she says, and no, he will not be here, because he works way too many hours, he's just really too busy for this, and I'm gonna handle it and take care of it. What do you say then? Well, as part of number 3.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem, right? And so, absolutely, like what Bill said, you start off with no problem. I prefer that he be there. I prefer that he be there too. Let's do this. Let's arrange the appointment when the 3 of us can get together. So that's how you just handle that. You just, why are you shaking your head no? What?
Because
They
sometimes
just
that
said
doesn't
that
happen.
they can't, yeah.
I mean, sometimes that
Yeah.
just doesn't happen, he could be
Yeah.
traveling, his
Yeah.
time is so limited.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me
On
ask
the
you a
job,
question.
He has a night job and she has a day
Right.
job, yeah.
It is possible, but there are, there's a chance that they do see each other, they are married. There is a chance that they do get together at some point, they're serious, and I know couples that, my best friend, when they switch off, I mean, they see each other for 10 minutes and they're gone. But there's at least one day a week when they're both home, whether it's on Sunday morning or Saturday night or whatever it is, there are times when they're both together. And so that's the
Do you
thing.
think they wanna see a realtor then?
Well,
No.
I would think that they'd wanna see you, I don't know if they'd wanna see the average realtor, but yeah, they'd wanna see a good realtor,
It's best to
sure.
try.
Yeah.
It's best to
Here's
try. If you
the,
don't get it,
yeah, absolutely. Is there going to be a chance, 1 out of 20 chance that there's absolutely positively no way that this is going to happen? You have to make a decision. Are you gonna go or not go? And if you're not busy, and the reason why you're not busy, by the way, is because you're not doing enough prospecting, then you would probably go and take a shot at it. And you might get the listing, and the listing might sell. Or you could, if you were busy because you were doing prospecting on a regular basis, you may say, you know what, I'm not gonna take my chances on that, I'm going to go on another listing appointment instead, because my time is valuable too, and I'm going to meet with people where I get all the decision makers there. Given a choice to go on to, see, the problem is you don't have some of us don't have the choice of going on a listing appointment when they're all there, or a listing appointment when they're not all there, because we don't have enough appointments scheduled, because we're not prospecting enough. So we end up going on appointments where we fail on because we don't have other choices. We figure, well, it's the only listing appointment I've had in 3 months or in 3 weeks, and I don't have anything else planned in my schedule. I'm just going to go. And the fact is, you're practicing giving a listing presentation, because sometimes now what you're doing physically is you're asking that individual person to give the presentation for you. Try giving that presentation to one spouse and try to get the spouse to convince them why you're worth 6 or 7% commission. Try that. See how that flies. You know what I've done? I've given presentations to 2 people. I've met with the wife. I said, listen, if you like what you hear and you see, could I schedule a lunch appointment with your husband? I know he's busy at work. I'll drive to where he works. I'll go to his conference room and I'll share with him. I don't want to ask you to do my job and have him answer questions, ask you questions. It's not fair of you, it's not fair of him, and it's definitely not fair to the agent that you hire. So I'm willing to do that, and I have done. I did it once where they absolutely couldn't get together. I went to his office, we went in his conference room, and I gave him the presentation. He said, I'm going to give you 20 minutes. I was there for 1 hour and 15 minutes, and he was smiling the whole time. Okay? he said, I'm only going to give you 20 minutes, but 10 minutes into it, he thought, wow, okay, tell me what. And then he asked me questions, So it was very interesting dynamic. Now, number 4, how much do you feel your house is worth? Number 4, how much do you feel your house is worth?
That doesn't work for me.
Well, I know it doesn't work. That's why I'm going to give you number 5. Roberta said it doesn't work for me, right? And
Why doesn't it work, Roberta?
yes.
Because they say, I was hoping that you were gonna tell me.
Yes, exactly.
Savvy people.
So now, listen, I have the answer. You ready, gang? Number 4 is what? Read it back to me, please.
How much do you feel your
How
house is
much
worth?
do you feel your house is worth?
How much do you feel your house is worth? And they say what, Roberta?
I was hoping that's why you were gonna come over.
Yeah, I want you to tell me. You're the pro. And then you ask them question number 5, if you have to.
What do you want?
What have homes like yours been selling for in this area? What have homes like yours been selling for in this area?
And they would say the same
They'd
thing
say
to
the
you.
same
Well,
thing,
don't you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Okay, most of my time in doing workshops and training is truly trying to convince you, the real estate agent, more than anything. Listen, I've made hundreds of these calls and hundreds of these appointments, okay? High-end and low-end properties, so it didn't matter what market you're in. I will tell you this, when you are going out, when you go to any professional and they ask you a question, you usually answer them. Listen, and here's another thing. What I'm trying to tell you is I've done this literally hundreds of times. Everyone has always answered number 4 for me. No one ever said to me, now could it happen? Absolutely. You could get on the phone right now, it could happen to you right now. No one ever said to me, well, you tell me. And by the way, if they were being a real jerk about it, I then could make a decision as to whether or not I want to work with jerks or not. And that's the beauty about real estate in our industry, is we get to choose our customers. If someone's a real jerk on the phone, they might not have even have agreed to an appointment. Now keep in mind the mindset and the mentality of this person. When you've got to this question so far, you've already built rapport with them. They've already agreed to an appointment. You're not making a cold call. I'm not calling Bill Fiore on the phone. I saw his name on the phone book and saying, hey, Bill Fiore, you don't know me, but how much do you owe on your house? What do you think your house is worth? Bill's going to say, who are you? And hang up. See, you have to you're taking this out and you're putting it on a separate plate, and it's not. It's part of a process. Remember, you've probably been on the phone with them already, 15 minutes to a half an hour already. They told you everything about their house. You said ooh and ah and wow, and isn't that special, and isn't that great, and oh, you have a Scottish Terrier, oh, I have one too, and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing, and so then you ask the question, how much do you feel your house is worth? They're going to tell you. And sometimes they'll lie. Sometimes they'll say, well, I think my house is worth $500,000 if I have to tell you. but that's what I think it's worth, right? And now, the second thing is, you say, well, and if they do say to you, and by the way, question number 5 is not, I'm telling you, it's not a real question because you'll never need to use it, but I'm giving you that so that real estate agents feel comfortable asking the questions. That question's there for the non-believers, yet, okay? You will eventually believe that it's true. So number 5, what if homes like yours have been selling for a year? It's like, it's asking the question, but it's asking it a different way, right? No one is ever, I've never had to use it, so I can't tell you whether it works or not, because everyone always answered the question prior, how much do you feel your house is worth? And so what happens is, let's say that they do say, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you, you know, or let's say, okay, if you really have to know, I think it's worth $5 million, and you say, okay, and what do you say, Bill? No problem, right, Roberta, no problem, and then you write it down, and now when you go out on the appointment, the reason why I'm asking you to ask this question is that you need to know that you're going out there and you're going to have to deal with an objection, which is about price, okay? Yes, Bill?
Yeah, last Saturday I went out on an appointment, and unfortunately, we didn't have this workshop before that. And had we had it, I would've known that I was gonna be wasting my time and I wouldn't have gone.
Okay.
But I spent my 2 hours getting ready to go for the appointment. I put my little props together and I went out there. And one of the questions I asked him is, what do you feel your house is worth? And he sat there and he looked at me and said, well, I don't really know. He said, I'd like to get 148 for it. I said, well, do you know what similar houses in your neighborhood are sold for? Oh yeah, that one sold for it, and he knew every house in his neighborhood, when it sold and how much it went for. So he had no problem answering the questions, even if he wasn't real forthright about a specific idea for his house. He was very aware of what was out there in the neighborhood.
Good for you. Well, thank you for sharing that. So it does work. And listen,
Did you get the list?
Well, okay, I wanted to see, it's a little less than what I thought I was gonna get for the house, and, you know, I wanna find out what my uncle's house is worth, because I'm trying to work a deal with my uncle and flip the house, and can you go out there and do this? I said, when you really get this solidified and you have a conversation with your uncle, I'd be happy to take care of that for you, give me a call when you're ready.
sure.
Because he's never gonna get together with his uncle. I also happen to know the family and some of the dynamic that goes there, so.
He probably doesn't even have it.
So,
Oh,
so,
no.
so you know what? Yeah, possibly, right?
He's got the uncle, but the uncle isn't gonna go with the plan.
So here's what I'm asking you to do. Ask the question. If they respond negatively in any way, you may want to, if they're really a jerk about it, you may want to decide not to go. And if they lie to you or they don't tell you, it's no what?
Problem.
No problem. Stay on track and go to the next step, right? Okay, what number are we on now?
6.
6.
Number 6, do you have a mortgage balance? I love that question. Not what do you owe on your house, but do you have a mortgage balance? And the reason why I love that question is for 2 reasons. Number 1, it doesn't make the assumption that they have a balance, and number 2, it cushions the next question.
How many mortgages do you have?
I like that, yeah.
How are you?
Hey.
This day and age.
Esther, you're good, you're good.
I've seen too many of them.
So, part of, we're still staying on number 6, write this next down to number 6, because number 6 is actually 3 questions. Number 6 is approximately how much is it? So number 6, do you have a mortgage balance, and approximately how much is it? And then the last part of number 6 is, how much do you feel you need to walk away with to make a sale feasible? How much do you feel you need to walk away with to make a sale feasible?
That would have saved me a lot of grief.
If I had known that.
Yeah. Well, now, here's what's interesting. Roberta just said that would have saved me a lot of grief if I'd have known that question. But here's what I want to caution you on, is that once you get the answers to these questions, you still need to probe, you still may go out on the appointment. Like, for instance, let's say, in order to make this sale feasible, I need $50,000. So let's say I do the market analysis, and I come out that it's gonna cost them $5,000 to sell their home and pay me, and they need $50,000 to make the sale feasible. I might call them on the phone before I go over and say, listen, I've went way back in my market analysis to 3 months ago, and I'm trying to find every comparable property possible that I could get to get you your $50,000 to make this sale feasible. Let me ask you a question. If we couldn't get you $50,000, is it worth us getting together? And they may say, yeah, you know what, I suspected that might be a problem. Yeah, I still want to know, and I don't. It's what I'd like to do. It's not what I need to do. And or I could, have my mom take out a home equity loan. So they start talking to you, about this. So don't automatically assume they answered that question. You don't get the right number, and it's a dead deal. Keep probing. All that does is bring up a red flag for you. It doesn't say the deal's dead. It brings up a red flag. It brings up an objection that you can potentially overcome. See, there are two different things. There are objections, and then there are situations that you can't change, right? Yeah, there's an objection and a condition. The condition is they really need the $50,000 in order to make the sale feasible, and that's a condition. Sometimes you look at it as a condition and you say, well, it's a condition. There's nothing I can do. I can't give him $50,000 to get his home sold. But what you don't realize is that conditions are sometimes disguised as objections. So you need to probe that condition a little more and ask a lot of questions. When you get a condition and that takes your transaction and puts it at a stop and you're at a dead end there, that's when you want to probe a lot more and ask some more questions in and around that. Because you may end up helping them solve the problem, right? You may be coming up with some ideas to help them solve that problem. Number 7, yes?
Don't mean to interrupt, but there's another new thing that's starting to crop up. I'm doing an estate sale. And yesterday they disclosed, and it's been taken care of, thank God, but that father had a reverse mortgage on the house.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if that hadn't been taken care of, that could have been a real big bugaboo.
Possibly, yeah, absolutely. Good point.
And she
Question
says,
that-
well, we paid it off. They
Right.
got
You
into it.
can pay off that reverse?
Well, somehow, yeah, depends on how it worked out. I don't know all the details, but she was.
Yeah,
Number 7, okay.
wow. They belong to them.
Here's number 7. It's kind of lengthy, and I know some of you are running off the page here, but okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And here's what you say. By the way, I have an earlier real estate appointment. By the way, I have an earlier real estate appointment. And then write this down. So I don't run late, let's do this. So I don't run late, let's do this. Will you be home between 6 and 8? Will you be home between 6 and 8? Or give that 2-hour window that you need. 7 and 9, 6 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. By the way, I've got an earlier real estate appointment, so that I don't run late, let's do this. Will you be home between 6 and 8? And they'll say yes or no, work it out so you can get that 2-hour window, and then say, fine, I'll be there between 6 and 8. Okay, fine, I'll be there between 6 and 8. And what time do you show up?
6.
6, so that you have your 2-hour window. And if you are running 15 minutes behind, then you've covered yourself. You follow me?
You be there, you give them the 2-hour window and you get there at the 6.
Right.
2 hours.
But if you had a later one, that would work too. Just so they know that you're gonna have to leave at a certain time, and if you're.
Possibly, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna ask the question anyway, but I already know the answer based on your reaction so far. Did you learn some powerful things today, yes or no?
Yes.
Absolutely. And do you think this will make you more money, what you've
Yes.
learned today?
Yeah,
Absolutely, I can tell.
no more floor time, no more open house.
Oh, sure, that's why you gave it to me today.
Hey, you
Nobody
can't,
was gonna
after
say
today though, you can't give it away,
Exactly.
Okay, next page, if you take a look at this, please. This is, I think, you know, based on a lot of questions that I've been getting, this is the part you've been waiting for.
Yes.
Right, is the listing appointment process used by top producers. I'm gonna share with you the exact process that I personally used to get over 60 listings in 1 year. Over 60 listings in 1 year. I'm gonna share with you that process that I used.
Can you have a packet for us?
Yeah, yes, I will.
No, you
I will.
need like 13 or 15 packets probably, for everybody.
Here's the,
That's what I said.
yes,
No, I am serious.
yes, yes, yes.
No problem.
No
No
problem.
In addition, you'll learn 7 powerful techniques that should be used in every listing presentation. And that's going to be next Friday here in this room. And any questions, gang, that I can answer? No? You've all been an awesome audience. Give yourselves a hand for showing up today. And sincerely, thank you all for being here. It was great. Thank you for your questions and your interaction. Very, very
Leave
good.
clipboards.
No way.
Yeah, leave the clipboard.
No way.
I almost died when I
Thanks,
had to
folks.
show people around
Sure,
Raleigh
yeah.
or Carolina during the
Would I
summer.
not sign you in,
For
darling?
3 days we drove around. Thank God. Thank God it wasn't bad.
I'm just gonna shut the recorder off.
John.
Thanks, John.
Nice session.
Very well. My pleasure.
Oh,